Welcome to the Geek 101 podcast, Mandalorian Episode 4 Recap. I'm Ariel,
And I'm Andy Bowman.
and this is the way. We are going to talk about Episode 4 of The Mandalorian. Andy, what did you think about this episode?
This was fun. I mean, this was the most self-contained episode so far.
Okay, yeah, definitely agree.
It was fun. I'm a big sucker for the Seven Samurai / Magnificent Seven / 13 Assassins, whatever that story.
Yeah, so let me. We didn't do this last week, and I think we should do it. Let's give a quick recap as to what happened in this episode. The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda make their way to a backwater planet where they come across a bounty hunter played by Gina Carano, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Cara Dune.
Cara
Dune.
Dune. Cara. Okay, that's weird that it's just a normal name. Then again, Luke and Leia are normal names. But Cara Dune is a former shock trooper and rebel shock trooper. For some reason, I thought she was a...
No. I think she's a shock trooper who rebelled. But she was definitely working for the Empire.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so the Mandalorian meets Cara Dune, who is in hiding, a former shock trooper, I think, working for the Empire. It does say rebel shock trooper in all of these things. Doesn't matter, not important. They are hired by a village on this planet to help protect them from the raiders who steal all of their crop, which they use to trade and survive, presumably. It is, like you said, Andy, basically a rehash of the original Seven Samurai story, except instead of seven samurai, there are two warriors, bounty hunter, warrior type people. But go on. What else did you like about this particular episode? This is not going to be a long pod review.
Right. Okay, what I really liked about this episode was showing the direct effects of the Empire falling. As far as, okay, you have an out-of-work shock trooper. You have a crew of, raider types who got their hands on an ATST.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just these little effects of, of the Empire's fall, showing well, the tank's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice way, a very logical way of showing the backlash of the Empire and the Empire's fall. Did you enjoy Did you like basically that they kind of did this? They took this Western trope and turned it into an episode?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit difficult to wedge the Mandalorian into this kind of story because I mean the character, the Mandalorian, not the show, because we haven't really gotten a lot of characterization of him, so we don't see him as a softie. But at the same time, I think this was important to just show, he will stick up for the people who are out of their depths.
Yeah, there is that little bit of character growth there, or display of character. Here's okay, let me get my thoughts in, and then I'll ask a question on you. I thought the episode was enjoyable. I thought it was a little filler, esque. The show is not going in the directions that I thought it was going to go. The Mandalorian is not. I thought it'd be like this tight Western narrative, and it just seems to be like Adventures of Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, at least thus far. But that being said, I do find it quite enjoyable. I think the tone matches the original trilogy in a lot of ways. Star Wars was always a little bit Western inspired. It was like Western plus fantasy plus sci-fi. It was like the amalgamation of genres that made Star Wars so successful. But like you said, there's off air. There's not a lot to talk about in this episode. We do know that bounty hunters are coming for Baby Yoda. But Andy, I have a question now that we can pause it and talk about, I guess, for the bulk of the episode, now that we're four episodes of The Mandalorian deep. Do you think this show is working with the faceless man as the main character?
I'm having doubts because okay, I knew as soon as Hot Widow, who wanted to get her some Mandalorian action, I knew as soon as she touched his helmet that his helmet wasn't going to come off.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
The consequences of that are that he can never put his helmet back on.
Right.
I think if you take out the consequences of him taking his helmet off, that this could work. But as of now, we know we will almost never see him without his helmet on. I'm sure it'll be like a big thing in either the last episode or the penultimate episode of the season. His helmet comes off.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. To me, we're getting a little bit of the. It's not so much that he is like faceless, right? That the helmet's always on. It's that he's like a wet blanket in the writing. Also, he is. There's like almost no like actual character development besides I'm a bounty hunter and I have a soft spot for orphans.
Right. Well, he's monosyllabic, right?
Yeah.
He just says what he has to say, which is great. But yeah, we do need more. And I think by removing his helmet, you can get a great thing like, oh, well, what am I now? Can I just put it back on and pretend? We could get that story arc, and that could actually develop this character.
Yeah, and to me, I like to think of a couple of examples. One is V for Vendetta, right? The main character there, where he is so expressive in his dialogue and his like physical acting that you really get a sense of who that character is. An excellent voice work by Hugo Weaving in that as well. But like we're not getting that with The Mandalorian, right?
Right. We're not even getting James Earl Jones voiceover for Darth Vader.
Yeah, it's like Pedro Pascal, except you can't even recognize it's his voice, because his accent's not there, and it's puzzling as to why you're getting him to do this. If one, he's not being expressive in his physical acting enough, and two, you're not even giving his like trademark accent to recognize his voice.
Yeah, so it's a problem, but it's a problem I really wonder if that will be solved in the course of this season.
I get that, but I think we're 4 episodes in an 8-episode season, and to me, it's almost too late. Where, like, if I'm going back and I'm watching this, I'm like, man, 4 episodes and this guy's shown us nothing, and almost nothing's happened in regards to the main plot. And I don't think the show is bad, but I still think that's a valid criticism.
Right. I mean, it is also kind of a Western trope in a way. I think it's the Searchers that kind of just goes about meandering the entire movie, and the whole point of the movie is that it meanders and the character ends up where they started.
Is there a secondary character in that film?
The Searchers, I don't remember. I do know that there should be secondary characters. I'd love to get some actual personality besides adorable out of Baby Yoda.
Yeah. So for example, if you look at a film like True Grit, where the main characters of like Jeff Bridges and Matt Damon aren't exactly like, there aren't exactly novels deep in their character development, and instead we are following around Haley Steinfeld's character. who I'm looking up here is Maddie Ross, as this young girl who is kind of driving the plot forward and keeping the audience engaged with her performance. But like you said, in The Mandalorian, we have Baby Yoda, and I think if you sit down and you really think about the show, like you said, cuteness can only get us so far.
Right. I mean, there were some amazingly funny moments this episode, but I still don't know anything about Baby Yoda's character other than it's a baby and it's adorable.
Yeah, and if this were a non-Star Wars, non-cute Baby Yoda show, I probably would have dropped it already because nothing's happened in the plot. And I'm a very plot-centric guy, right? Where if your plot doesn't make sense, even if the story's told really well, like I'm never watching it again. Like it's tough for me to go back and watch most like Nolan movies because like those stories really like told really well, but in the end, like man, like you kind of missed a couple of things here and there with the plot. And now with this, sure the plot can end up great, but that's that this is like, let's say 3 hours total of I mean maybe it does you better when you binge it, but for now I'm just I want things to happen and nothing's happening.
Right. I do think that something is going to happen in the next episode. One thing really is the past few episodes, things have happened. It made progress to getting Baby Yoda in episode 1, to kind of dealing with that a little bit in episode 2, and then he stole Baby Yoda back from Werner Herzog in episode 3. So there's this on-off episode pattern, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I very much see where you're coming from. I do think this is probably the consequence of like, oh, well, we have to do eight episodes because Disney wants us to do 8 episodes. Let's just make a fun little thing in the middle here. They even do this thing where she just... What is it? Yeah, it's Mando who mentions like we raised hell here a few weeks ago. So I think it's supposed to give us a feeling that time is passing as well.
Yeah, but it's not doing a good job in trying to tell you that time is passing.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That line was like, it threw me a little for a loop. I was like, man, weeks. And the show is so like short, right? Each episode is so short, 40 minutes at most, sometimes 30. So I think overall, I'm definitely on, like, it's a positive, and I'll probably be higher on it as the season ends. But like right now, I don't quite think this is like a slam dunk.
Right. I do also wonder how much of this episode was Disney being like, okay, listen, this is the post-Thanksgiving episode. Families are going to be together. Let's make something that is almost an introduction to the show.
But that's not.
I mean, it doesn't help the show, right? Like, I very much see where you're coming from, but I'm just like wondering, like, this is just such an inoffensive episode. You don't need to know much to enjoy this episode.
Yeah, and I think I would enjoy this episode more in a 10 episode, 12 episode, certainly a 24 episode series. But with 8 episodes and like 30 minutes each, and
right, so, it feels like there's a scarcity of time and you're wasting it.
Yes, it feels like they only have 4 episodes worth of stories to tell, and I think that would be the case. I think somebody out there, some editor, is going to be like, "Man, The Mandalorian really could have just been like
a movie,
a 3-hour movie, like a true old, like drawn out." Slow paced but well crafted, like 3-hour Western, instead of what it is we're getting.
Now, Ariel, do you think it might be because this movie was directed by a woman?
I thought the direction was fine.
Yeah, I mean, it felt very standard.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is going to be a medium where directors can express themselves.
No, it certainly seems that Disney's got them, by the it's Disney's like he's like, hey, we're not trying to be like we don't want to be divisive right now.
Right.
We don't want this.
All right, Ariel, real quick, what was your favorite part of this episode?
Baby Yoda in the cup.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Go on.
I really liked the ATST walker in the woods, like the eyes coming up. That was really cool.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. That was a nice touch. I think that the it's really tough for me from an action perspective. And I think you kind of ruin yourself when you're a kid and the only action movies you watch are like Jackie Chan movies. Because then you try and watch like Arnold fight and you're like, oh, this is bad. And that's not like the true value in that, but like watching the different directors have different like action styles makes it just like, oh, some of this is bad, but then like episode 2 had some really good action, and then episode 3 had some okay and some bad ones, and it's just with the money that's behind this and the history of Disney or in the history of Star Wars action, I'm expecting more, and I think we should expect more. I don't. It was sloppy. The action between Gina Carano and or Cara Dune's character in The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Man, I will say, like, I think we're really gonna see an interesting episode for the final the season because that's Taika's episode.
Yeah, he is certainly one of the more esteemed directors on that list. Do you think it'll be a little bit? Did you finish The Boys, Andy?
Yeah, I did.
So I didn't finish watching, but I read up on it. Do you think it would be like a cliffhanger-esque ending reminiscent of that?
I think so. I think they went in this knowing they had a second season.
Okay. I mean, so here's the next directors. Dave Filoni, who is the Star Wars Rebels creator guy. Rick Famuyiwa, who did episode 2, most known for Dope, which I think was a really great movie.
He was supposed to do The Flash.
Yeah, he was supposed to do The Flash. Deborah Chow is doing episode 7, who did episode 3. I think is the best episode thus far. And then Taika Waititi is doing the final episode.
Yeah. I will say, episode 6, I think, is going to be one of the more interesting and divisive ones because that was written by Christopher Yost.
Christopher Yost is known for what?
He's known for Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, but he was also a Thor Ragnarok writer.
Right. I mean, I think he's a Thor writer. He's a comic book writer. Like, you can go on his Wikipedia and just see. He also did like Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, a bunch of animation. Okay, yeah. Yeah, but here's my hot take, Andy. Most comic book writing is actively bad.
Ariel, I'm not going to argue with you because I am in the middle of Crisis on Infinite Earths right now.
And it's bad. And it's just like, only in a comic book can you get Superman riding a dinosaur saving a kid. And it's just like, well, that's stupid. Like, I don't understand. But that's my hot take. Like, the more comic books I read, the more I realize, like, wow, most of these are really, really terrible. And the very few times they're not is when obviously when writers get like their own like little mini or maxi series and get to tell like a very specific tighter story. But
yeah, I mean that's the truth. Like, I keep telling you about how great The Long Halloween was.
Well, I mean, you don't have to tell me. I
right. But it's just like, oh, that script is good. It's punchy. It's short and precise to the point. Anyway, I mean, there were lots of little cute Baby Yoda moments. There was a fine to middling action sequence where one thing I will appreciate, we always see the ATSD walkers either getting punked by Jedis, or like rarely do we get the feeling of how powerful one of those walkers is.
Yeah, it's a little annoying that they were like, nothing can take down those legs. And I'm like, man, the last time we saw these things, they were getting destroyed by tree trunks and little Ewoks.
Right. So, it was kind of nice though, just to see like how terrifying it was, even to the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think we should call this one. This was just a filler episode.
Yeah, and it's difficult to talk about the greater, what's going to happen in that greater story.
Ming Na Wen.
Right.
Ming Na Wen.
And so here's an actual criticism that I've heard brought up. Like, where are the women in this? Like, this is the only episode with a woman with a face, like, has a speaking role more or less, and it's like they're still like relegated as these really unimportant side characters, and they will continue to do so. I'm assuming as the series go on, because like Ming-Na Wen and Gina Carano are only making these like episode or maybe 2 episode things. Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't really have any thoughts. I will say that there's not many characters in general in this show.
Yeah, but then, except for this episode, which is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who is, of course, a woman.
Right, but then they had to throw a weird love story in out of nowhere.
Oh, that really bothered me.
Yeah.
Really bothered me.
It was awkward. Yeah. It's just like, oh, you don't even know if this guy's species is compatible with you. Like,
I mean, it's not just that. It's like they don't do a good enough job at implying the passage of time.
Right. No. She's just the horny widow who...
yeah, that was...
like, oh, a young man. Okay.
Yeah. Why didn't you take that mask off?
Yeah, and then they even have Gina Carano being like, oh, yeah, you could settle down with the beautiful widow. What?
Yeah, I was just like, man, just make this about, the Yoda and that was annoying. I do think it is a criticism, one that Jon Favreau has been known for in the past. He's a bro, right? And in a lot of ways, he's a bro.
Right. I also think that, if you're a white male director, you really don't think about it. Like, you have to be willing to adjust yourself.
Yeah, especially one with his type of like power in his industry.
Right. Which he totally should do. I'm just, trying to explain why I think it is the case.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think it's malicious, but it definitely is like something like, oh, man, it'd be really nice to have just a really badass female character who's, maybe even better than the Mandalorian in some respects. Yeah. As far as kicking ass.
Yep, gotta agree with you there. All right, Andy, let us get out of here. We will be back next Sunday with episode 5. What are we doing this week for?
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh yeah, Crisis on
Yeah. Hey, look, we will have a great conversation with 2 high-level thinkers about writing and world building and what books mean. So yeah. At least come for that, because it's not going to be a good news week either.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll be talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths. Tune in for that later in this week. But Andy, where can people find you online?
You can find me online on Twitter at Hebrews Paleo.
All right, you can find me at Dread Pirate Rada. You can find us at Geek 101 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook and Patreon. Email us geek101pod@gmail.com. That's all we have for today. Class dismissed.